everybody. My name is Matt Owens, and you're listening to another transmission from A Cult of Misfits. You can find me over on Instagram and Twitter. I just recorded a new Instagram Live if you're interested in checking that out. Or you can check out my podcast, A Cult of Misfits, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Amazon Alexa. I talk about the esoteric and ancient knowledge and the inward journey and consciousness and the nature of reality, all the fun stuff. So check out my podcast if you're interested in any of those things. Today, what I want to talk about is manifestation. On my walk today, which is where I usually connect with the all that is and just sort of let flow in what needs to flow in. So today, manifestation was the topic du jour. So I want to dive into manifestation a bit and how there's a real possibility that it might just be a part of the matrix, that it might just be a part of the grand illusion that we're in. I want to talk about the ego and how the ego gets attached when manifestation is talked about. And I want to talk about free will a little bit. And I want to dive into financial fears, fears around money, and some of the things that I've done in my life and how to become fearless. If you didn't check out my last podcast episode, I titled it The Whole. I talk about facing your fears. I watched an episode of Rick and Morty, which I break down and use as an analogy, diving into the hole in order to face your fears, and not being able to come out of the hole until you face your dang fears. So I can relate to that on many levels, and I think that may be what's happening here in the Earth realm. So check out that episode if that sounds interesting to you. And let's dive into manifestation. It's always at the forefront of my mind, this whole manifesting thing. There are several things that I've talked about that I'm currently trying to manifest in my life. And I started thinking, I got this image of the tree, right? And the four seasons and how, perhaps we are like the tree wanting to manifest, blue skies and sunshine and, bluebirds chirping. But there are four seasons that the tree goes through, depending on your location, obviously, guys. Just stay with me here. Uh, Oftentimes we find ourselves in these places of darkness, the winter time, when all of our leaves have fallen off. Everything looks really bleak, really dark, really scary, perhaps. And during these dark times, I often find myself trying to manifest things, manifest my way out of this, right? Trying to practice with my mind and focus on it and do, intentions and all the things all the things that the people online say to do, right? In order to manifest sunshine and happiness and abundance and all the things that I want. But all I see is this bleakness around me, right? And I was reminded by Spirit today on my walk that the tree doesn't manifest anything. The tree just is. The tree just experiences what's coming. And it's coming. The next season, the next chapter, it's around the corner. And everything points to this, right? The ancient knowledge points to this. Nature itself points to this. It just, everything is ever changing, right? Metaphorically and literally. And so, unlike the tree, rather than just being and experiencing and recognizing these patterns that are in our lives, that there's going to be a new season with sunshine and abundance, right? But then that also means that you're going to lose your leaves again, and it's going to be dark and scary again, and then it's going to be abundant again. This is the nature of these cycles that we go through in our life, in the cosmos, in this universe, right? And so Spirit suggested to me today that I just be like the dang oak tree. Let it be, let it be, right? If your leaves are dropped onto the ground and you have no more leaves, metaphorically, whatever that means in your own life, that's what's meant to happen right now because it's winter time. That's the season of your life that you're in right now. This is what Spirit's telling me. And to stop wishing and hoping for the next season, right? Because it's coming. I know that it's coming. I've seen the pattern. I get it. The pendulum always swings, like the sunshine's coming. And so just to, enjoy the ride, right? Which is, of course, extremely difficult. But these are the things that I'm practicing. So I started thinking, taking that analogy, marinating on that for a bit, watching Chi Chi chase a squirrel. The squirrel's not real. It's just part of the grand illusion, guys. Just FYI. Um, so I have these things in my life that I'm trying to manifest. Right when I started getting into spirituality and stuff like that, I started dabbling in this manifesting thing, and I started testing it out and trying it out to see, like, okay, is there anything to this? Like, can I actually use the power of my mind to create things in my own reality? I'm the creator of my own reality. I keep telling myself every day, right? Because that's what I'm told by people online. That's what feels good to me. I'm like, yeah, I am a creator of my own reality. That's right. I've talked before about manifesting, financial freedom, financial abundance, and how glorious it's going to be to tell everybody who will listen to me, look at what I did. Look at what I manifested. I manifested this financial abundance in my life. And to be proud of myself. I worked hard for this. I did the inner work. I faced my shadows. I did what was asked of me by spirit. I checked all the boxes. I did all the things, right? Look at how good and spiritual I am. I'm so cool. And once I started saying that, I started realizing, oh, that voice sounds real familiar. That's Hal. I call my ego Hal. Hal is a real sneaky SOB. And snicky. He's sneaky and snaky, guys. All the things. He's a sneaky SOB. Real greasy. Real greasy, too. So all of those things sound like Hal. All of those things sound like my ego wanting to take credit for this whole manifesting thing, right? To show everybody, hey, look what I did. Look what I manifested, everybody. And then today it occurred to me, and I had to take a big step back. I was like, okay, maybe this whole manifesting thing is not what I think that it is, right? I question everything. Just taking a bigger step back, I often talk about how I think that this whole reality is not real. That sort of needs to be said every time, because we're told from the ancient scripts and ancient myths and stories that some being created the material world, whether it's Yahweh or Enki or Yaldabaoth or a dozen others worldwide. Somebody created the material world. Outside, we're in what can be considered to be like a womb. Matrix just means womb. And so I just like to put the pieces together and sort of build this foundation of what I think is going on around here. And so it needs to be talked about all the time. Sometimes I feel repetitive when I talk about, like, hey guys, everything's an illusion, but it just sort of needs to be said because it's sort of a core foundation. It's sort of changing how I live my life now. Now, of course, I'm not, 100% on this. I'm not all in on this is an illusion, but I'm pretty convinced. Whether it's what the ancient wisdom has told us, the ancient philosophers and the religions, and they all mention how this is an illusion. Modern science points to it too. I've talked about it before, so I won't go into it because I do feel repetitive. But I have to realize that not everybody listens to every single one of my podcasts, so I kind of repeat things here and there just to pick up the pieces. Um, Mainstream science shows that solid matter is 99.999% nothingness, empty space. That's a real head scratcher, right? Um, the double slit experiment proving that reality doesn't exist unless there's something there to interact with it, visually or auditorily or otherwise, right? Like, there's a lot of weirdness. So I've sort of put all the pieces together, and at this point, I'm fairly convinced none of this is actually quote unquote real. I think that we're in some sort of a simulation or some bubble reality, or a construct. Um, and so I try to base all of my philosophies and actions and beliefs based on that none of this is really real. So I started reading these scientific studies that were done. This is all related. That's why I'm going off on these tangents. These scientific studies that were done about the nature of free will. They had the subject, they would have a red light go off. And when the red light go off, the subject was supposed to then raise their hand. Okay, for example. And um, so the red light would go off, and what they noticed, what they were calculating was the subject would raise their hand and begin raising their hand into the air, and milliseconds after that, the brain would fire the synapses telling the arm to raise after it had already begun to raise into the air, insinuating that we don't have free will, that the arm raises when it is meant to raise, and the brain has to play catch up. The brain is like, oh, I did that. I raised that hand in the air. So it's questioning free will, right? That these studies have shown that, these actions that we take in our lives, physical or mental or otherwise, are predetermined. And many of the ancient philosophies also point to this, right? That free will may just be an illusion. And I'm starting to play with that idea. So let's say that free will is an illusion. Let's just say that everything in this whole reality is an illusion. I'm starting to question the nature of the universe. I'm starting to dive deep into quantum stuff, just stuff that's really over my head. So I got to really like take it slow. But there are theories out there that the universe that we're currently in is possibly finite. That this weird bubble that we're in, that was created by Yahweh or Yaldabaoth or whoever, Brad. You guys haven't heard of the deity named Brad? Look into it. Just kidding. I made it up. Don't look into it. That the universe is finite, and that outside of our universe, outside of the boundaries of our universe, is something we don't know. Question mark. Right? Real life outside of the veil of reality that we're in. So I'm saying all of this as a foundation, that I think that everything in our known reality is an illusion, and therefore manifestation is an illusion, right? We think that we're manifesting this dream job or a new meaningful relationship or whatever it is you're trying to manifest, right? As soon as it manifests, your brain is like, oh, I did that. I'm a co-creator. Without realizing perhaps that that's just part of the illusion. In the same way that the brain says, oh, I lifted that hand into the air. No, you didn't. Science is showing that nope, no, you didn't, little guy, right? The mind is just an interface with this 3D realm, right? It doesn't necessarily know what's going on. It's the reptilian part of your brain. It's here to keep you alive. It's here to regulate things, right? Bodily and mentally, but it doesn't know how to go beyond that. And I think that that's by design. I think that it's a governor of sorts that's sort of restricting us, um, because we're not meant to break free from that yet, right? And I think, and we can start talking about reincarnation cycles and breaking free from those, achieving nirvana or whatever. Um, and so I'm starting to wonder if these things that I think I've manifested were really just always meant to be, right? Like these, I talk about destiny and fate and things like this, and I think that there are moments in our. I had to break this down. Like I think that there are moments in our lives, these big tentpole canon events in our lives, whether it's the death of a loved one, or a marriage, or the birth of a child, or a certain job or whatever. I think that many of those things are predestined. So then I take that a step further and say, like, well, if these major events in my life are predestined, then what's stopping me from taking it one step further and saying all of it is predestined? Right? And it sort of is at odds with me trying to manifest things because I'm frustrated that my manifestation hasn't come yet. Right? But I think that it just comes when it comes. I think that, like the oak tree, I don't have to necessarily do anything. I think that I'm on a pre-recorded life here. I think that God or my higher self or spirit or whatever created this simulation for myself in order to achieve certain things that I wanted to achieve. And so I think that my higher self, my omega, as I like to call it, I think that my omega wrote this whole story. That totally sounds like something that I would do, my higher self. I would totally, as I believe that we're infinite beings living in the 3D realm, that totally sounds like something I would do is write a little story for myself and then live through it for the expansion of my soul and my consciousness and things I can't really comprehend, right? So I'm starting to, why I'm talking about this too is because I get very frustrated sometimes when my manifestations don't come as quickly as I want them to or in the manner that I want them to. They never do. And so the broader, deeper topic here um, is really about patience and acceptance. Right? I think that really what we're truly meant to be doing, if we're meant to be doing anything at all other than just observing, is just accepting. Accepting what life throws at you, accepting the good and the bad, accepting the season that you're in, accepting that all of your leaves have fallen onto the ground, accept that you have an abundant life and your leaves are back and full of fruit and everything is going great. Um, because in the spiritual communities and religious communities, oftentimes they say about prayers or manifesting that just consider that it's already done. It is already done. It is already written, which goes to the effect of we don't have free will. It's already done because it's already done. You just haven't gotten there yet, buddy. And you think that, I always think about this, another scientific test that they did with pigeons. They put these pigeons in a cage and they would give them food pellets randomly throughout the day. And the pigeons, anytime the food came out, the pigeon would think about what it was just doing, like flapping its wings, and it'd be like, "Oh, I just flapped my wings, and a food pellet came out," not knowing it's completely random. So then they start to think these pigeons start to think like, "Oh, because I was flapping my wings, that must be what brings the food." And I think about that often. I think about that often because I think that we're programmed in many ways, but in religious systems, they sort of preach. I grew up in a religious household, preach this idea that you have to do things in order to please God, right? You don't want to displease Him, so you have to do the good things and not the bad things. It sort of goes even further and deeper as real introspective today, guys, about this need that many of us have, that I have, that's why I'm talking about it, of needing approval from my parents, right? Even into adulthood. It's something that I've recently been working on breaking free from and working through that and not feeling the need to have their approval because I often don't. And learning to be okay with that, learning to to live my own life, not for their standards, but for my standards. And my life has gotten a lot better as I've worked through that. But it also translates to religion. Like, why am I always trying to impress this sky daddy? Is it disrespectful to call Yahweh sky daddy? That's okay. He is a loving being, apparently. So he'll love me no matter what I say. Um, it's seeking this approval from the deity, from the higher power, from the parent, right? It's all connected. So then if I'm breaking free from seeking my parents' approval, then why aren't I breaking free from seeking the approval of the divine, this divine being? All right, always trying to do the right thing so I don't fuck up. So my life isn't miserable. But I think it's already done. I think it's already written in the stars. I think there's so much. I was listening to a podcast yesterday on a side note about how the stars and the constellation, the position of the planets at the time you were born, has a lot to do with your personality in many deep ways. And the podcast was also talking about how there's been some looking into and correlation between your star charts, your star signs when you were born, and your physical looks. That certain certain things applied certain ways, and they had all these different, people who were born under these stars or that moon, whatever, right? They had certain facial features that were very similar. So I find that interesting. That I think that a lot of who we are as humans is pre-programmed, including our entire story. So we're also told by mainstream science, but also spirituality, that time is an illusion. There is no past, present, and future. And so, in another way, it's already done because the future is already here, somewhere out there, right? In space and time, and in ways that I can't fully comprehend. So, there's a future version of me that already has whatever it is that I want, that my heart desires. And it's just a matter of aligning yourself to that frequency, is what I'm told, is what I've talked about many times. And I'm starting to question that now. And I like to share these things with you because it's just, we get, as humans, we get real comfortable in our belief systems, whether it's a religious belief system or even a spirit. When I first started getting into spirituality, I thought like, oh, I've finally broken free from that all that religious stuff, right? Now I'm finally on the true path, right? I can see the esoteric wisdom and knowledge. It resonates with my core, and I finally have seen the light. But it's just another system that I found myself in, right? I just hopped from one religious system over to a spiritual philosophical system. They're just systems. And it's real easy to latch onto them and proclaim them as truths because we don't question these things. And and as a part of my practice, I question everything regularly. Because I latch onto these things. And then it starts to become who I am. And I have found that there's much suffering involved when I start latching onto things like that. Because then when somebody says that I'm wrong, or that's not right, Jesus said this, and then I'm like, well, then I start getting worked up, and I start getting attached to my beliefs, and then I'm like, I'm right and you're wrong, and it just causes more suffering for myself. So I like to mull this stuff over and think about it, and ruminate and philosophize, but I try to not attach myself to it too much, right? So I get real attached to this manifesting thing. That's why I'm trying to break free from it and just take a step back, or 20 steps back, and just take a breather and question this whole manifestation thing. And I think it might be a product of the ego. Now, it's not to say that um, I just think that miracles and happenstances and synchronicities come into our lives. It's all interwoven, and I think it's all predetermined. I guess that's what I'm getting at. So I'm trying to come to a place of acceptance and realize that whatever it is that I think that I want, none of this is real. And so whatever is meant to be in my life is going to be in my life, and whatever is not, and to learn to be at peace with that. That's the game that I'm currently playing. It's just learning to be at peace with that, to accept what is given to me, to accept what is taken out of my life. Um, Super challenging, right? This is like the razor's edge, the straight and narrow, the difficult path. But just showing you my notes, showing you what I'm going through. Same thing with fears around money and facing your fears, which is what I wanted to talk about. Um, I often talk about how I faced all these fears in my life. I want to say all my fears, but that's just not true because that's just not possible. I think that there's always going to be a fear mechanism. Just when I think that I've conquered all my fears, the universe has a way of giving me several new ones to munch on for a while. Right? Here's a new challenge for you, pal. You did a good job with that last batch. You faced all those fears. Here's some new ones for you. And I'm like, oh, okay, hi, level 2. So the last few years for me has been a huge journey in facing my money fears. And so, I say we don't have any free will. And so my ego wants to be proud of me for all that I've done. Like, hey, I did a really good job facing all my fears. It was very difficult. Faced my fears around my body issues. I just hated my body and hated myself, and had a lot of social anxiety, and just a long list of things, right? And so I've systematically been working through those, but I don't know if that's on my own accord, right? So I don't know, I'm sitting here tooting my own horn, but that's just, again, that's just Hal. That's just Hal wanting recognition. Look at me, look what a good job I did. So questioning it all, but I just thought it might be helpful to share with you guys some of the things that I did, whether or not reality is real. We'll just talk about it, about some of the things I've done to face my fears these last couple of years. I had a lot of lack mentality, right? Like just I'm always living paycheck to paycheck, or I'm not going to have enough money for next month's rent, or how am I going to pay this bill? Just lack, 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 lack. That's just sort of the mind, the programming, the frame of mind that I was in, right? For years, my whole life. And often it's generational, right? Your parents have a certain view around money, and it's real easy to rub off onto the kids. Um, that's why it doesn't matter if you have $10 million in the bank or 10 cents in the bank. If you have fears around money, the amount that you have is irrelevant, right? You can be wealthy and still have these money fears, like, when am I going to lose it all? When's the other shoe going to drop? Right? Just this fear of, I might, I don't want to be homeless. I don't want to be destitute. Right? Fear, 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 fear. And so the universe has been um, giving me lots of opportunities to face those fears. I came to a point in my life a few years ago where I thought, okay, I think I'm ready to face these money fears. I don't really know where to start. I don't know what that means. I step one is recognizing, yes, I have a lot of fears in my life. Now what? How do I begin conquering them? How do I begin wrestling with them? And so I bravely slash foolishly asked the universe to intentionally give me situations and scenarios where I would be facing money fears. And the universe sure did deliver. Whether it was an unexpected bill that would come, or a medical bill, or a speeding ticket, or just any number of things, I started getting all of these money related issues all of a sudden started popping up into my life, and I started freaking out. Panic mode, red alert. But then my guides, my angels, they said, simmer down, simmer down. We got you. Remember, you asked for this. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, 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 okay. I see what's going on here. But I'm still scared out of my mind and still pissing my pants. And so, like, what do I do? 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 And so, Spirit wanted to show me all of the times that I freaked out about money, and then all of the times that subsequently it worked out, where I panicked that I wasn't going to be able to pay that bill, and then somehow, some way, I did. I wasn't going to be able to pay rent that month, and then some way, somehow, I did. My car engine blew a gasket. I don't know how I'm going to be able to pay for that, and then I did. And so I started reminiscing about all the times that I freaked out and panicked, and all the times that it worked out. And then I started playing a game of like trying to think of all the times that, okay, fine, cool, cool, cool. I'll prove you wrong, universe. Here's all the times that it didn't work out. And then it was crickets. I couldn't think of one time that it didn't work out, right? Not to say it wasn't rough, not to say it wasn't a bumpy ride, not to say it wasn't terrifying, but at the end of the day, yeah, I guess you're right. It did work out. Fine, fine, fine. You got me there. So I had to build this trust, faith in a divine hand, call it whatever you want, God or your higher self, or what did I say earlier? Glenn, Dave? I don't know. I had to have faith and trust. I had to be shown that something out there has my back, financially speaking. And I went through some real hairy situations, right? Not having a job, not having a place to live, being, living out of my car, all of these situations that the universe lovingly put me in. I laugh and cry at the same time, right? Like, it's not fun. It's not easy. It's the most challenging thing that I ever have done facing these fears, right? So once I built that foundation of trust with God, knowing that, okay, this is, you know, God's got a pretty good track record in my own life. That's all I'm speaking for, of these things just mysteriously, miraculously working out. So based on that, I could then take the next step forward and have a little bit more faith and trust the next time these money things came along, and just have to repeatedly tell myself that it's all going to work out. I know that I can't see how it's going to fucking work out from my current position. My human eyes can't see, but to close my eyes and walk in faith and walk in trust that you're being led not to your doom, but through this storm, through this fire. It's going to burn. It's going to burn. Just a heads up. It's going to burn. It's not for the faint of heart. And so I applaud you. I see you. I know that there are those of you out there that are listening to this, resonating with this. I can feel you. It's bringing me to tears. Hi. Early on in my journey, I had to have a real conversation with myself and say, like, we have an opportunity here to be fearless, to not let anything affect us in that way anymore, to not allow it to rock our boat anymore like it does, like it has. To put my foot down and say, no, I want to start facing my fears, and I don't know where to start. Just thinking about it scares the hell out of me, and asking for divine help, point me in the right direction, and then having the cojones to push forward and accept what the universe gives you. Because these money fears, or whatever it is that you're scared of, the universe gives it to you benevolently, puts you in these situations and scenarios. That's what this whole simulation matrix is a place to face our fears. That's a large part of it. I won't say it's the only component, but it's a major component. I don't think that we're allowed to advance to the next realm, heavenly realm, or whatever you want to call it, until we have purified ourselves. And I think this is part of the purification process, is cleansing all of these fears that we've attached to. They're all in our minds. That's what I had to remind myself often, is this is just all in my mind. It's all stories that I've told myself and chosen to believe, and it's about rewriting those stories. I wanted to start pursuing fearlessness. Great. How do I do that? Face my fears? Oh, shit. Okay, here we go. And I started getting better at it and better at it. Very slowly, guys. Very slowly. Not an overnight success. Still not even a success. Still working. Right? Such is eternity. But I think that once we recognize these things, recognize our fears, that's step one, is like, okay, I can see it now. I can see it for what it is. It's still scary, but at least I'm willing to look at it. Right? All my whole life, I didn't even want to look at it. I didn't want to look at it, think about it. Nope, nope, no, 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 no. Put my fingers in my ears. La, 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 la. I don't want to talk about my money fears. But I've noticed this in my own life, and I'm sure you're going to recognize it in your own, that the universe has a way of bringing things back into our lives over and over and over again until we learn the lesson. Because our soul has us here for that purpose, I believe. There are certain lessons that need to be learned, certain fears that need to be faced, and they're going to keep coming back until you face them. And the universe has a real good way of doing this. It's all just batting practice. It's about shifting my shifting it from a victimhood perspective of like, why does this shit always happen to me? Why is my life so terrible? Why are all these things happening to me? Shifting it and saying, thank you for all of these opportunities to grow. Thank you for another opportunity to make me badass. Let's do this. I had to ask myself, why are you here? Are you here to bitch and moan about the government, or, to make friends and, all that's components, right? But like, I had to ask myself, what are you doing? Your spirit has you here for a reason. Like, let's let's get some. Let's do this thing. Because if I don't learn these lessons now, I'll learn them in the next life, or the next life, or the next life. I'm going to keep on reincarnating according to the ancients, according to the Egyptians, until your heart is lighter than a feather. Right? Stripping away of these impurities, these fears, these mental blocks and mental traps. I want to be fearless. I want freedom from all of my fears. Because my whole life, they were shackles around my neck, drowning me. And I'm freeing myself from my own shackles of fear. And I know that it's scary. And I know that it's difficult. And I know that you don't want to do it if you're anything like me. But I want to encourage you that you can do it. We are never given things that we can't handle. And so know that whatever it is that you may be going through, you can get through this. You can do it. And you have the power to be fearless, to face this fear. And then the next time it comes, it's going to be a little bit easier. And then the next time it comes, it's going to be a little bit easier, until it gets to the point where you're like, oh, wow, that doesn't even keep me up at night anymore like it used to. I don't have that knot in my stomach all the time that I used to. I can just breathe a little, right? Looking at that demon that has been on your back this whole time and say, man, I love you. Thanks for coming along with me. Welcome along on this crazy journey. Embracing your demons, embracing your shadows. Because at the end of the day, they're just a part of you. They're just in your mind. They're aspects of you. I love you.